house and became like a second home. It's not exactly like a first home, because we would stay there for months on end. And I guess it kind of disguised the fact that we were homeless. Gosh, there's so many good memories that I have of that house. The staff became more like family to us. I remember they had this desk in the office, and I used to sit at this desk, and the staff would let me make like an announcement whenever it would be like dinner time. And so I'd get on the intercom, and you're like, dinner is now being served on the second floor dining room. All guests are welcome. I thought that had actually dubbed me the queen of the Mardi Gras parade. I had this beautiful blue dress, and I got to have a crown and a scepter. It was great. After I went to prison, after the murder, everything came out about everything that my mother was telling me. A lot of this information came to me by either Mike, my attorney, or Christy, his stepmom. And then it got back to me. Mike had told me about what my mother was telling people about my father or about our family, our relatives. It was a lot to absorb. My two attorneys are telling me that my mother has something called Munchausen by proxy, and she was using me for money and abusing me medically, and then to tell me all of the lies and manipulation on top of it. So I felt, did I ever know her at all? My own mother?
I think to some degree I knew it was a facade. However,
what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. We're going to be getting into a part 2 of reading GypsyRose Blanchard's prison emails, specifically the ones that involve any mention of her mother, Claudine Blanchard, who Gypsy had brutally murdered. So if you didn't watch part 1 of this video where I was going over some of Gypsy's other emails, make sure to check that out. But we're going to be picking up where we left off in there and getting into some more of those emails about Gypsy's mom and some of the tactics that she used while she was in prison to get her way or control situations. Some of the ones that aren't as talked about or just totally random, but I feel are noteworthy, that kind of stood out to me for one reason or another. So let's go ahead and get into that. Before we do, make sure you like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with anything I've got coming out on my channel. But let's go ahead and get into Gypsy's prison emails and see what she had to say about her mama. I feel like this email that she sent about her mother is very, very telling, and it pretty much, again, just like blows up her whole narrative of, you know, kill or be killed or the abuse and whatever with what she says right here, because it says, well, hell, the truth is I was extremely desperate to get out from under my mother's control, and I really did think it was my only way out. Because someone was asking her, like, I guess, why did you commit the crime or whatever? And she's like, well, I just wanted to get away from my mom's control. So she committed the murder because she didn't want to be controlled. That's very different than essentially a self-defense type of thing where it was kill or be killed, or the child abuse / adult abuse was so horrific and traumatizing, or the Munchausen by proxy surgeries were so overwhelming she was on her deathbed and she had no other way out. No, she just doesn't like to be controlled or told what to do. Now, is that a good enough reason to murder? No, it's not. She says, if you watch the HBO documentary Mommy Dead and Dearest, you will see that she had roadblocks preventing me from running away, and blank made his own choices. I never forced his hand to commit the crime. He wanted to do it. He said he was saving me. Back then, all I knew was what my mother allowed me to know. Therefore, I was very naive about everything, having time to grow up and mature, and I now know that I could have run to someone and just told them everything, and I would have never been here. Instead, it would be my mother in prison. I wish I could change it, but all I can do is own my wrongs and try to be better for myself and be a voice for others who might be blah, blah, blah. She wasn't that naive. And again, this was a multiple-year murder plot. This was not something that just bizarrely happened one random night and things just got out of control and whatever. No, this was a very meticulously planned plot, money sent, weapons picked up and stolen and things like that. Like, it wasn't just something that, you know, happened like even like a movie. This was like far more meticulous than what you would see in just a random TV show even. But yeah, she was naive. She was probably just naive in the fact that she wouldn't get caught. I don't think she ever anticipated getting caught. I think she fully anticipated Nicholas getting caught and going down for it, but she probably just didn't take into account that she would be looked at as guilty even though she maybe didn't hold the knife. In another email, Gypsy is describing her relationship with her mother, and I'm not sure who she was speaking to at this time, but it says, "Dearest one, I understand now. I'm sorry for asking if drugs were involved. I only asked that because I have had loved ones that have had a difficult past, and drugs was often the case," meaning Ken. And that's funny that she says that, even though we know she claimed to be an addict, but like she talks about, like she like separates herself from addiction. And that's why I don't believe her, like, whatsoever about this whole taking pain medicine or, benzos or anything, because she just doesn't speak like somebody that knows anything about anything. I mean, honestly. But she says, "Sweetie, you don't have to avoid talking about anything with me for the reason you do not want to make me feel uncomfortable. It is okay to talk about whatever happened with you and your mother with me. My relationship with my mother was very unhealthy. We slept in the same bed. We bathed together. I was hardly ever alone. You were the opposite end of the spectrum. You mentioned you were often left alone. Neither of us had a happy middle ground. I believe things really began to be manipulative when I was around 6 and 7. I was growing out of the babyish cartoons and toys and began watching Disney princess movies and playing with Barbie dolls. Even way back then, my mother displayed a hesitant opinion about me growing up and growing away from her care. It was at this time that she started to show signs of wanting to make me younger, and it was also at this time she kept me from playing with other children. She only continued this path of forcing my stages of mental and physical growth to be a step behind, making it so I would always need her close. You have to understand that I was all my mother had to herself, and she was a very bitter woman after my father divorced her. He was the man who ruined her. She told me at a young age, never trust a man. They are beautiful to look at, but never love one because he will hurt you, he will betray you, and he will leave you. Never understood, and this broke my heart. I truly believe, alongside with MBP, her actions were that of a desperate woman's desire to be wanted and needed by somebody. This saddens me because she didn't have to do all of that to keep me close. Sad face. Some people self-destruct themselves and others take victims with them. I feel anger for what happened and I feel confused about it, about how to feel about her. But I don't ever let it consume who I am, and I am proud of you for using your emotions in a healthy manner. I use Christy as my mom now because she gives me room to grow and make my choices, even if they are mistakes at times. It shows me how a mother shows love, and I am learning how a mother should be by her. So now when I have children of my own, I know what kind of mother I want to be and what I will never be. When I am a mother, I will be so overjoyed to see those milestones of growth. Whichever I have, whether it's a boy or a girl, I can't wait for him or her to experience the things that I never did. That doesn't mean I'll raise a spoiled brat. I'll teach them to be humble too. I just feel like she's literally projecting and she's just making a narrative of things, and I feel like that's why her story is so hard to believe, because it just doesn't make any sense, honestly. In one email, Gypsy talks about the Hulu show The Act and how there were a couple of things that she noticed apparently right off the bat when somebody asks. And she says, "You've seen The Act. I haven't. All that sweet of you. I'm not sure how I was portrayed in the show. From how the trailer looked, it doesn't look cheesy like some other portrayals. Here are some differences that I know are wrong. Number 1, she never smoked with me. She doesn't smoke. I guess Aaliyah never smoked with me. She doesn't smoke. Number 2, I never had a hamster. I had a cat. Number 3, the guy that met me at the sci-fi convention, his real name is, I guess, Dan and not whoever that was in the show, and he was not dressed as Wolverine. He was just in normal clothes. Never said, 'Welcome to your new life,' after having sex with me. Number 6, my front teeth didn't just fall out, they were surgically removed, and according to records, there was no valid reason why the dentist removed them, other than my mother wanted it done. My front teeth are fake and my back are mine, but they are silver capped. I want to get cosmetic dental work done when I'm home." Okay, again,
So the cause is actually not known. All that I know from the medical records is that my mother told them that my teeth were very fragile and were crumbling, and so they decided to extract. So the dentist extracted several of my teeth, capped other teeth in chrome caps, and that's what happened to my teeth. So it's mysterious why doctors and dentists would remove healthy teeth, so I'm not really sure.
They didn't just rip out her teeth because her mother said so. They were literally rotted. She knows that, and this is probably going to be a lie that she takes to her grave, honestly. But that's just so... I don't know how anybody can believe that a dentist is just going to rip somebody's teeth out just because mom wants it done. And in another email, Gypsy's talking about her mother's side of the family, and again, not caring about anybody, especially even family members. She's talking about deleting people in her contacts that are in contact with Dee Dee's side of the family at all. And she's saying that she went through her list of contacts, and I know 38 people out of 2,000 plus in my JPay. As I'm getting closer to getting out, I'm just cutting ties with people who I feel weren't there for me during my sentence. I feel if someone has not played a supportive role in my life, then I don't need to bring them into my new life post-prison. I deleted someone. She lied to me about being in contact with my mother's side of the family. I guess she didn't think I'd ever have the courage to call my aunt, who I haven't spoken to in 6 years. Besides, obvious people I wanted to clear out. I know that everyone who writes me does so with the expectation of being my best friend, but kind of goes with the flow, and if someone clicks with me good, then yes, take them on as a friend. If not, I don't continue writing them. But like, she's literally deleting somebody that spoke to her or had a relationship with her because they had a relationship with her mother's side of the family. And we know Gypsy never cared about any of them, but like, that's not the vibe that she was putting off whenever they were calling her in those jail calls. She was all happy to talk to him and make jokes and, you know, talk crap about her mother, but she's deleting people for even being in communication with them.
Still, you know, sister, and she's still my mom, and
Right.
just honestly know that I was desperate. I was desperate to get away.
I believe you. I
And
do believe you.
it's like, I'm not a killer. I have never been a killer. I don't even hunt. Because I don't kill. I don't kill animals. I don't kill humans. But
In a positive memory, though, when she's talking about her mother, she talks about watching the Olympics. She says, it is Olympic Day, tuning in for the opening ceremony tonight. My mother and I would always watch the summer games ever since I was very little. Go team, the Italians. So a lot of positive memories with her mom, it seems like, especially in her childhood. Which, you know, I guess that would lend to the fact that Gypsy didn't know she was being abused because her childhood wasn't really that bad. As far as, you know, behaviors, she seems to have a lot of, you know, little things that she would do with her mom, or little rituals like watching movies, or like little things that they would do together as bonding or whatever. But yeah, she had to kill her. And in one email, she was asked about the alleged fraud. I'm guessing about the financial fraud schemes and medical fraud. And she says, wonderful, I'm happy to hear it. Well, I'm going to go on a visit with my friend. She's a mutual friend. I just got the questions. No, and my father and I never took a paternity test as it was never needed or asked for. And no, no one has investigated me for the fraud because it was clear in the paperwork that it was always my mother who filled out everything. And we all know that's not true because, again, Gypsy signed her own paperwork as she got older, especially past the age of 18. She was signing her own paperwork and her own medical records, power of attorney paperwork, or whatever. Gypsy was signing those. But, you know, what's funny is Gypsy will sit there and say that her mother said, never trust a man. They're pretty to look at, but they'll never love you, like blah, 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 all that crap that she says. And then she starts talking about how her mom actually was really interested in a guy, but she ruined that relationship with him. She said, I had remembered a faded memory from when I was very little, maybe 5. My mom had a friend named Mark. He liked her, and he fixed a room at his place for her and I. I didn't like him, and so I spit on him. I only wanted my dad and my mom back together, and I was not happy with any guy that liked her otherwise. Sometimes I feel like deserved what happened, because I guess it wasn't happy with her being with another man, and dad moved on, and then she felt I was stopping her from having a life with anyone else, so her focus was on me. And then she talks about how I wanted to write down anything I can remember about. And then she says her mother disabled the doorbell on our Habitat house. After the people from DFS came to the house, she said the sound gave her anxiety, which Gypsy did write that in the book. I don't know if that's true. I'll have to go back and look at crime scene photos to see if they even had like a doorbell. Then another random memory about her mom. She says, I remember something else. When I had to give a urine sample at the doctor's, I'd pee in a cup, but my mother would take it and prick her finger and add a drop of blood to the sample. Why? Don't know. It's just another weird thing, which I'm going to go back and check the medical records, but I don't believe that there was ever a urine sample submitted that was positive for blood in it. So again, I think she's just making up these things and like tossing out these little bits and pieces for Melissa to form her own, like, oh yeah, that was again your mother doing this. So keeping herself like she's not like realizing it, almost like this facade of, I don't know why this happened. What do you think? Type of behavior almost. Melissa sends emails to Gypsy asking about more information about her mom and what she remembers. And Melissa sends, this is really good insight, very helpful. Please walk through the normal fears that she had and how she operated. Did she always answer the door? At home, did you ever run or walk around the house? Tell me about her shoplifting. What did she steal? She said no, she rarely answered the door unless it was expected company. She would let the person knock and pretend not to be there even though her van was parked in the driveway. Sometimes she would drive the van to another spot to appear like we weren't at home. Our house looked like a hoarder house all the time unless she knew company was coming over. Her fears ranged from lizards as a basic normal fear to abnormal fears, like me being in my room alone in my room for too long. A few times she caught me on my computer while I was in my room, so after catching me talking to people on Facebook on the computer, she didn't trust me enough to spend any time in my own room. By 2015, I was limited to changing my clothes in my room, and that's it. She would time how long it would take to change clothes, and she would get up out of bed to check on what I was doing if it took a little too long in my room. She placed a reverse lock on my door, so it had the lock on the outside of the door, and I would have to ask her to unlock it so I could get dressed in my room. No, I didn't walk or run around the house if she was home, but when she wasn't home, I would walk and dance too. We had a CD player, and I would listen to music that was forbidden, like Katy Perry, and dance music. She didn't let me listen to pop artists because she said it was a little too adult content in the lyrics. I was 22 years old. As for the shoplifting, we would go to Sam's Club or Walmart, and she would put me in the basket cart, and she told me to slip things under my dress and sit on them. I did, and we would steal so much stuff like DVDs, clothes, food, hygiene products. She sometimes would have me steal DVDs, and she would go resell them at a local video buy-sell trade shop. By the way, she never shoplifted alone. She needed me to be the one to use my wheelchair as a means to hide things. So she just said prior that her mom would put her in the basket cart and then have her slip things under her dress, but then she also says that her mother never shoplifted alone because she needed Gypsy to be in the wheelchair in order to steal things. But then that goes against the narrative of everybody, Gypsy included, that Dee Dee had a long history of shoplifting. She had gotten in trouble multiple times for shoplifting. She was essentially like a kleptomaniac. She was always stealing things no matter what store that she went to, if she needed it or not. So why would Dee Dee never steal if she was by herself, if that was something that she had a long history of doing? And she says, I'm going to be writing new things I remember because lately my memories are clear as day. So they may be random emails, but I'm writing what I can give you as it comes. When my mother and I were living in the Slidell housing complex in 2004 or 2005, my mom had a neighbor she would sell her prescription medicine to for extra money. She started selling her weight loss pills, but then she started selling her pain pills and Xanax. This neighbor told other people in the complex, so she had more than one buyer. In 2015, my mother stole money from our neighbor Debbie Akers after Debbie trusted my mom to put the money Debbie made after doing an experimental trial for one of those companies that pay you to be a volunteer for a new drug or product. Debbie knew mom had a safe, and so Debbie asked mom to put the $2,000 in the safe for her. Mom agreed, but stole a few hundred from the money, and then when Debbie realized the money was missing, Mom played it off like it must have been Debbie's disturbed older son. So at this point in time, Gypsy would have been like 14 years old, so she was, I would assume aware of what her mother was doing and watching how her mom, if any of this is again true, hard to tell, honestly. But, Gypsy was aware of what her mother was doing. She saw how her mother acted, and that's why she did the same things too. That's why she had no issue stealing. That's why she went to Walmart and stole things on her own all the time. And a lot of people say, and myself included, that whenever Gypsy's saying that her mom did something, it's just Gypsy like placing that on her mother, and it's something that she did herself. Yeah, again, when Gypsy brings up the whole curse that her mother put on her, that voodoo hex or whatever on her and Dan, she starts talking about that and how she also did spells at the time, and she was talking about how she was currently Wiccan. She said, "Some would say I'm fated to turn out like my mother because of her life choices and how it affected how I was raised. I say I make my own fate and change that because it's in my hands and power to do so. That isn't to say I don't believe in God. I do believe there is a God. I just also believe in self-will power to steer your life in the direction you want to go. I started learning about Wiccan late December 2020. I attended Wicca services on Monday. How I practice my religious belief by allowing myself to let go of bad energy and allowing myself to give out positive energy towards others to introduce good karma to me. I often meditate and read tarot cards to guide my day and pull revelations about my life. No, I have never cursed anyone, and I would never do that to someone. Yes, I have attempted a love spell. It was in 2013. I created a spell to tie Nick and I together as lovers, so he would send me a lock of his hair, and he did. In an attempt to cancel out my mother's curse on me, I asked him, and he took a strand of his hair and a short strand of mine. When my mother cut my hair routinely and twisted the two together and enclosed it in a photo of me and him and wrapped it in red yarn, the willpower of this spell was broken. When I wrote after he was sentenced and he wrote wanting to get back together, I rejected him, and with closure the spell ended and he was free to have new relationships. Curses and spells are like wishes or a prayer for something to happen. It's called manifestation, and the karma you put in is how powerful it can be. So I think a lot of us probably agree that Dee Dee never did that whole cow tongue in the jar, buried it in the backyard. None of that probably happened, but I do believe that Gypsy was doing spells on Nick. And it's funny that she'll sit there and say that she learned about Wiccan or that, whatever Wicca in 2020, but in one of Nick's trials, they were going over information, and at that time he knew that Gypsy was a Wiccan because it's brought up. He's asked about it. The person on the stand is asked about what he knows about the Wiccan religion or whatever, and how Gypsy did a spell to bind Nick and her together. And funny enough, around the time when Gypsy was talking to Ryan Anderson, she asked for his permission to do a spell on him too. Just a fun little tidbit for you. And then speaking of Ryan, she's talking about how her mother kept her from having a social and sex life. She says, "So I have something to tell you. If we're going to be long-term friends, I think honesty is very important for any friendship. You need to know that I do have a current relationship. I am with my best friend. He and I have known each other for about 2 years. We didn't start as romantic. I friend-zoned him for about a year because he was chasing other things, or because I was chasing other things. He isn't physically my type. He is a bigger guy, and people often say he is the live version of Peter Griffin from the TV cartoon Family Guy. So to say that I would have saw him and been off the bat attracted to him, that is not the case. What brought us together is our connection and how well we mesh with each other. He was that guy that when a guy would reject me, I'd cry to him and be very vulnerable to him, and little did I know he felt more. He became my comfort and he fell in love with me, and he watched me give my heart to these a-holes who put me through hell, and then eventually realized that though I may not be sexually attracted to him like I would like to be if he was physically my type that I'm drawn to, but he loves me better than anyone I've ever met. He would be an amazing father and husband one day, and I'd have a good and happy life with him, and so I am with him. I do love him, and I do feel he feels deeper than I, but we make each other happy. The thing is, my relationship lacks is sexual excitement on my part. And I am expressing that in my emails to you, it seems. I often confess I never lied to him, that with how I grew up with my mother, keeping me from having a normal social life, that never had the opportunity to date around or have a sex life and experience different people, that now sometimes find other people interesting. I find you interesting. But I didn't want to continue to send you emails and you not know that that is the whole picture. I'm trying to figure out my life and learning by experience. You are a very charming guy with a very sexy voice, and I really enjoy talking to you. And to say I don't get butterflies when I hear from you would be a lie. I hope that no matter my relationship status or what is going on in my life, I hope you will still want to talk to me too. Have a good night. Another email, Gypsy's talking about her scars that she has from the procedures. She's saying about your scar or missing teeth. I have multiple scars. One that is from where the feeding tube was. It was about 1 inch and it kind of looks like a second belly button. I also have 3 smaller scars on my stomach. I have 1 scar on my right thigh that is 2 inches from a muscle biopsy, and I have 2 scars on my neck from yet another unnecessary surgery. My front, top, and bottom teeth are missing, and the rest will have to be taken out with cosmetic surgery. Blah, 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 blah. I look at my sister, and my sister is so beautiful. She has perfect teeth, a perfect body, a perfect life. And I just think about, had I lived with my father instead of my mother, I might have had a life like my sister. Sometimes I wake up from a nightmare about the life I had with my mother and reach into my shirt to feel my scar. Yeah, she's very jealous of Mia. We've all said that. It's pretty beyond obvious. And she even said it herself. She's very, very jealous of Mia. And again, with Gypsy, like, kind of throwing random things on her mother, she talks about how her mother apparently wanted to move her to Alaska, which is ironic because at one point, I want to say it was Rod was talking about Alaska, where there was like other mentions of Alaska in the emails where she was having conversations with somebody. And then, out of the blue, all of a sudden, here comes this new random fact memory. She says, did I ever tell you that after my first attempt to run away from home, my mother wanted us to move to Alaska? She felt the life she built in Springfield was caving in, and she was researching Habitat for Humanity homes in Alaska. However, her health took a turn when she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and for the meantime put the possible move on hold, which I had always heard it was Florida that she planned on moving. So, like, where did Alaska come from? Probably some random conversation that she heard from somebody and thought it sounded good for the story. And then she talks about how her mother, like, was concerned about Gypsy's obsession with Star Wars and banned her from a website. And she says, have you ever heard of Wikipedia? It's everything Star Wars information site. I used to spend hours on that website learning who is related to who and where they were from. Become so lost within that world. My mother actually banned me for a period of time from anything Star Wars because she feared it was an obsession. LOL, it was honestly just a way of getting away from my life living with her. I felt like if I could take my mind and live in another world, didn't need to face my own. For a while, that's that love of stories and heroism. And then she says that she was a theatrical child when she was young. She says, yep, in fact, my mother was an extra in the movie version. When I was 6 years old, I could quote the part when he cuts her hair off. I was a very theatrical child, LOL. Well, doing some winter cleaning over here, but basically by saying I was a very theatrical child meant I was pretty good at acting, probably pretty good at lying too. So she's saying at 6 years old she was a very theatrical child, and she puts it in quotations as well. So people still want to believe that all children don't have the ability to be, manipulative or, sneaky, when that's not always true. And then a message from Melissa, again, is like, she's talking about how Gypsy wasn't happy with the book proposal or like the draft version, and how Gypsy basically said it wasn't like articulate enough to like be from her, because people always commented on how articulate she was for living with her mother. And Melissa is, sending Gypsy an email to the person that was writing it, giving examples of what Gypsy had wanted, and there's these other details in there that are different from other details that we've heard of the same story. So, like, if that doesn't make sense, she said, again, factual, just not taking the opportunity to have us experience a moment in time that Gypsy lived through so we know what she felt. The sample chapter is where this really could have shined. For example, there is a memory Gypsy has of sleeping over at her cousin's home as a child, and she is jumping on the bed when her aunt walks in. Immediately she drops to the bed in tremendous fear and freezes, knowing she was caught using her legs. Now being caught, hell will be paid when her mother discovers her lapse in the act. There are many memories Gypsy has of the transition of being healthy while her mother starts to train her to be sick that could be used for this sample chapter. So I've always heard the story that she was jumping on a trampoline with cousins, and then her mom pulled up and then Gypsy dropped with fear. But now it's jumping on the bed. But I also heard another story that Gypsy was jumping on beds at a furniture shop and somebody saw her. Like, where are all these narratives of her jumping on something coming from? Yet nobody knew she could walk. Or that her mother was forcing her in the chair. And also did nothing about it. Something that I found pretty funny is she's having this argument with, I guess, Ryan Anderson, and she's talking about triggers that remind her of, her mother, and this is why they get into these arguments. And the trigger that she says is because she's not allowed to talk to other men. She's literally in a relationship with a guy that's upset about her talking to other men, and she's like, again, projecting like her mother's murder or her life with her mother and using it to like weaponize against people. She says this was to check the list of pending requests sent to people. I wanted to revoke a few I sent a while back, such as Leviticus in my aunt, but he didn't see Leviticus in the list, nor did he see Robert's. So I clicked on their profiles to manually view the status of the request and saw they denied it. I get it looks bad, but my friend is an idiot and does crap without walking me through it first. As for account that stemmed from talking about a picture me and his mom, did you see we looked at his mom's account? I called you non-stop after you hung up on me. I sat on the big phone calling until I couldn't call anymore. I'm sorry that I upset you, but you didn't give me a chance to explain. Had you answered, I would have explained that on September 14th. And I mentioned mom, and I said, I wonder if she still has the picture we took. When she came to look up and the picture we took wasn't there, then it became, I wonder if we can snoop and are able to see his pictures because I'm friends with his mom, so we had to look at his account. We were trying to snoop, blah, 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 blah. I have always been transparent with you. I don't want to be friends with certain people from my past. Most times all I want is the opportunity to have a voice as a mature version of who they used to know and make amends so that I never leave anyone on bad terms. Unfortunately, my path crossed with many in a complicated way, and you have helped me write and send such messages. Maybe I do dwell on the past too much, but my past is a source of pain that needs healing. You say you aren't my supportive husband, but you don't ask me what will help me heal from my past. You used to know how to make me feel better when I was sad. Now sometimes you are what makes me sad. I feel like sometimes you are robbing me of having a voice by scrutinizing who I message and now whose profile I view. The sad part is this is such a trigger for me because my mother would prevent me from having communications with males for a fear of a romantic connection. And now that I'm in a marriage with boundaries regarding other males, it F's with my head and I am put back in that time with her. I'm trying to adapt to married life, but some of it feels like life with my mother all over again, specifically when it pertains to friendships or communication with men. Either you trust me or you don't. I just know that this is a hot button issue and I don't know how to give you security to feel safe in your role as a lover and me peace of mind to feel liberated as a person with autonomy. This is when therapy would be helpful because I feel lost and helpless. Is this what marriage is? Feeling alone and helpless? But she weaponized her mother's death. She's literally in a relationship with a guy that's upset about her talking to other men, and she's like, again, projecting like her mother's murder or her life with her mother and using it to like weaponize against people. And it's not because she actually cared, because I mean, clearly Gypsy benefits off her mother's death to this day, right? But that will be it for these emails on Gypsy's mother. I'm not sure if you guys were able to kind of see the pattern and the way that Gypsy would use her mother's death and like pivot to be able to use it in any situation that she was in for her own benefit. And it's never coming across as like a genuine feeling of like missing her mother. It's either she's upset because she's being punished in prison, or she's using it in a way to manipulate and get her way in a situation. And that's just how she is. She is very manipulative. And I feel like even, you know, with the whole art thing and stuff that she's doing now. But I want to know what you guys thought about these emails so far with Gypsy talking about her mother. What did you think of them? Did you see any sort of pattern with what Gypsy said and did? Let me know down in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button and make sure those notifications are turned on so you can keep up to date with anything I've got coming out on my channel. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.